Hey everybody, Rex the dog. Here I'm going to talk a little bit about prequel movies, and I'm kind of going to refer specifically to two movies I recently saw in theaters, which are going to be Wicked and Mufasa the Lion King. So the Wicked movie was something where I didn't think I was the audience for. I didn't think this is something I would care about. I thought it would be corny. I thought it would be bad. I know it's like a part one, part two thing, so I thought it'd be like an elongated sort of mess. But the thing that really impressed me about Wicked is how it nails every single cliche prequel beat to the degree that, for me, it's set a standard bearer for prequels. Alongside, I guess I've got to kind of include in that conversation Better Call Saul, always kind of being like the definitive example of how to do a prequel story. But obviously that's like a long-form TV series as opposed to Wicked, which is like a book, musical, movies, right? But yeah, it really nails all those like cliche prequel bits that you get, which feel they feel like they're people who have written. I don't know if it's just like a lack of creativity, or I don't know if it's just people reducing characters down to objects they own, right? So, you know, in prequels, and some real good examples of this, okay? I've got some spoilers for the Han Solo movie here and Mufasa the Lion King. Okay, so, you know, a lot of these movies have, how did this person get like this? How did this get like that? Where did so-and-so get specific object, right? And every single prequel moment where, like, other prequels fall short and create really cringe nonsense, for example, you know, Solo, Wicked effortlessly and intelligently, smoothly integrates it into the plot and into the character. It's basically like a anti-Solo A Star Wars Story. Now, Solo A Star Wars Story I thought was kind of fun, right? I thought it was kind of fun for what it is. I think it's disposable, but for what it is, I thought it was kind of like a little bit of a fun time. But at the same time, it's like, come on, it's like they've created that checklist of like, oh, okay, so who's Han Solo? Oh, so Han Solo has like, he's called Han Solo. So we need to explain why he's called Han Solo. So they do that. They're like, oh, he like has these pants with a stripe on. Where did he get those from? And he's gonna wear those now for the next 50 years of his life. Where did Han Solo get his gun from? Oh, how did he meet Chewbacca? Oh, Han Solo doesn't trust people. Why doesn't he trust people? Oh, Han Solo won the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian in a card game. We need to see that. Oh, Han Solo did the Castle Run. We need to see the Castle Run. Oh, what else was in that? Oh, the Millennium Falcon has a sassy personality. Why does it have a sassy personality? You know what I mean? You're just like making this checklist, and it's like, oh, well, what's even kind of like left to do? Han Solo doesn't like rebellions. Why doesn't he like rebellions? You know, it's like come on. And the Mufasa movie was so reductive as well. Again, it's kind of fine. It's maybe like a 5 out of 10 movie for me. But it's like, you know, it passes the time. It's a nice kind of VFX showcase for the impressive snow they made. But it's like, oh, what do we know about Mufasa? Mufasa was in a stampede. He's the stampede guy. So what if in the Mufasa movie, in every single of the 3 acts, there's basically a version of the stampede? Because that's what we know about Mufasa. He's the stampede guy. And the bit where he's hanging and Scar. And speaking of Scar, how did Scar get his scar? And why is he called Scar? Is it because he got the scar? It's like, it's come on. Remember Rafiki? What was Rafiki about? Well, Rafiki had a stick and a tree. So how about we find out how Rafiki got his stick and Rafiki found his tree. You know, it's like Pride Rock. Where did Pride Rock come from? Oh, well, let's show how Rafiki created it with his earthquake powers. I'm kind of being facetious there, but I'm sort of not. You can't interpret it that way. But you know what I mean? Like, these movies are fine, but, like, you know, like, disposable, and I just think it's, like, it shows such a, you know, oh, at the end of The Lion King, they fight above fire. What if at the end of Mufasa, they fight above water? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's so, like, I've spoke about this before. It's interesting when movies do kind of something like different and go in like a new direction and do something like creative and take like the toys they have, like kind of like when you're a kid, you don't like play the same thing over and over and over with your toys. You like, they go in new adventures, they go in new genres, they go in new directions. It's not just like forever this Lego man is this guy or forever this is this guy, and you know, I don't know. So that whole like, kind of like, I get it, but it's like, that stuff didn't all need like explaining. Like, we don't need to know how Han Solo got his gun. We don't need to know how Rafiki got his stick. You know what I mean? It's not like questions we were begging to be answered. But so I see why that like sort of prequel trap happens, but and I can see kind of the appeal of some of it. Because there's some stuff where it's like, oh, that would be like, I don't understand how, I know how Han Solo got the Millennium Falcon. They told us. They had a character moment in another movie where he said, I won it off you and we are gamblers and pirates and whatever. It's like, oh, I don't need to see that to bridge the gap. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're not doing that in kind of like a interesting way that isn't like, as I said with Wicked, effortlessly and intelligently and like smoothly integrated into the character and not just the plot, it's like delightful, because that's actually how I felt about Wicked. I thought Wicked was like, it was delightful. I think it totally fulfills its promise of sort of what it's setting out to do there. How did we get the hat? Why is she green? Why is there a broom? You know, the Wizard of Oz. Like, I thought it really nailed it, and I thought the performances were really great. I thought there was, like, the songs were wonderful. I'm not a big Wicked guy, so I don't really know these songs. Like, I obviously know them from, like, osmosis, right? I might go see the show in October when it comes to town. But I thought the songs were wonderful. I thought there was, like, comedy that, like, worked. Like, I laughed out loud. I thought there's a really, like, complicated and nuanced message about identity that's braver and more incendiary than most modern movies risk to be, especially something on this scale, which is like, you know, it's like a blockbuster, it's like a superhero movie, it's like a big, you know, a big tentpole movie. That's what I'm looking for. It's like a big tentpole movie, and the fact that they kind of go there in like this way, and obviously, you know, it must have come from the source material, but the fact that they adapted it and carried it on and made it so prominent in the way they do, I thought was really good. Other than the, quite frankly, terrible digital screen sets, which you know, The Mandalorian Season 1, and the volume, that LED screen set they created was like cool and whatever, but the fact that that's sort of dominating a lot of these scales of movies, that they basically force pretty much every indoor environment to feel like a soundstage with like a 35-foot tall ceiling. It, you know, that stuff's not great, but ignoring that and talking about sort of the bravery and the performances and the song and the humor and the message, it suffers essentially from none of the weaknesses that have plagued these modern studio films, modern studio filmmaking that's been for years. You know what I mean? It's plagued these kind of films being, you know, this repeating cycles, that kind of schlock, for years. So, and that deserves being applauding, at least for me, because I'm a guy who, I mean, you probably see this from its channel, from the types of, like, different types of games I play and the different movies and the different whatever I talk about. I've got, like, a taste that's all over the place. You know, I like the small, you know, movie. I like the indie comic book. I like the DIY punk rock release, but I also like big, studio, like zeitgeist, AAA, whatever things. I like that stuff as well. I think it's like bombastic. I think it's fun. I think all these things have a place in society, and the fact that your big tentpole movies have all in all been really poor for like a long time, and something like this comes along, it really like, I can't wait for part two. If I'm being real, I can't wait for part two. I thought it was great. And oh, my air fryer just went ding for some reason. But I mean, I guess I just realized as well what makes the film even better as a piece of big budget studio filmmaking is that the majority of people watching it have maybe heard, and including myself in this, have maybe heard the songs, but don't actually know the plot of Wicked. So like they kind of keep you moving because, oh, it's like that song. It's like kind of like, although the songs are all from this musical, it feels like a jukebox musical because you know all the songs via osmosis. Yeah, I don't know. I without spoiling anything, the second act begins with a game-changing, like, I can't believe they're going here twist, and then goes screaming head first at its own conceptual premise. It's wild, and I'm not familiar what happens with part two, but having spoke to, like, Wicked nerds, Wicked heads, I've been essentially told it's gonna like knock me on my ass, and I just want to kind of avoid the spoiler. I think because I was enjoying this like movie presentation spectacle, and I think they're doing it so well, I'm just gonna stick with the medium presented in. That's what I tend to do. If I like, for example, the George R. R. Martin books, the Song of Fire and Ice, Game of Thrones thing. Like, I started watching Game of Thrones, like, when I was, like, watching whatever HBO put on a Sunday, back in 2011, and I enjoyed it. And then I know a lot of people jumped medium, but I was like, I'm going to stick this out, and I'll read the books afterwards, and I'll live in this medium and have that experience, and live in that medium, have that experience. I mean, the bad example, because those books never finished. I think I'm going to experience the Wicked thing as the movies, and then I can start going into the other iterations it's existed in the original novel and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Wicked a bit. I thought it was cool, and I wanted to talk about the stuff that was in Mufasa and Solo, which I'm not gonna harp on as like really bad movies, but just like it's dull. Anyway, that's for me. That is me for today. Peace out. Bye.